Dad, you're getting so...
I'm fine, you stay dry.
But Dad, you're literally dripping.
You're dry, that's all that matters.
I love you, Dad.
What is that? I don't do small talk. Tell me one reason I should hire you.
Because everyone says that.
You start Monday. Don't be late.
Thank you. You won't regret it. Lily had a fever last night. It spiked at 3 a.m. I was at the emergency room until 6. I'm sorry, it won't happen again.
The rain had been falling for hours when Alexa Morgan sat alone in her Mercedes, parked on the edge of the city she owned in every way that mattered. The skyline glittered through the wet windshield like a painting she had commissioned but never really wanted. Her phone rested in her hand, screen lit, contacts scrolling, and she called no one. There was no one left to call, not because her life was empty of people, but because she had made absolutely certain that none of them could reach the part of her that still hurt. Love is just a lie you tell yourself before someone proves it. That sentence had lived in her chest for 3 years, quiet and cold like a stone at the bottom of a river. By morning, Alexa was back in control. She stepped into her glass office tower with the precision of a woman who had decided that perfection was the only armor worth wearing. Her heels clicked against marble floors. Assistants straightened. Junior executives found reasons to look busy. The conference room fell silent the moment she entered. Not out of respect exactly, but out of the kind of fear that well-dressed power tends to produce. She spoke about numbers, quarterly projections, market share. Her voice was steady, her arguments sharp, her decisions final. And if anyone noticed the hollow quality behind her eyes, that particular emptiness that follows a loss too significant to name, they knew better than to mention it. Alexa Morgan had built an empire on the silence of people who almost said something. She had won everything, and somehow in the winning she had misplaced herself entirely. She hadn't always been this way. There was a version of Alexa who laughed easily, who believed in things, in people, in promises, in the quiet miracle of trusting someone completely. She had given all of that to one man, not just her heart, but her work, her savings, her plans, her faith in the basic goodness of other human beings. He had taken it all with a smile she once thought was genuine, and then he had simply disappeared, not just from her life, but with pieces of it tucked into his pockets. The day she discovered the full extent of what he had stolen, something inside her didn't break. It froze. And she had spent 3 years keeping it that way, because ice doesn't bleed. I will never let anyone that close again, even if it means spending the rest of my life alone. She had made that decision calmly, the way she made all her decisions, with absolute certainty and no room for renegotiation. In a quieter part of the same city, in a small apartment kitchen that smelled like burnt toast, Ethan Cole was having the best part of his day. "Dad, you literally burned it again," his daughter Lily said, 8 years old and entirely unimpressed, her feet dangling from the kitchen stool. "That's called caramelized," Ethan said, flipping the slightly too dark slice onto her plate with a chef's flourish. "You wouldn't understand, it's a gourmet technique." Lily dissolved into giggles, and Ethan laughed too, a real uncalculated laugh, because there was something about his daughter that made even burnt toast feel like enough. They didn't have much. He worked long hours at a mid-level project management job that paid just enough to keep the lights on and Lily's school fees current. He drove an 11-year-old car that complained going uphill. He wore the same rotation of clean, pressed clothes every week. But in that kitchen, between the laughter and the imperfect breakfast and his daughter calling him out on every mistake, Ethan Cole was genuinely rich in the only currency he cared about. After Lily went to school each morning, the lightness would fade slightly. Not into sadness. Ethan didn't allow himself sadness for long, but into the quiet weight of a man who was one unexpected expense away from a real problem. He paid the bills, he showed up, he never complained, and when Lily fell asleep at night, he sat at the kitchen table with a notepad and worked through next month's numbers slowly, patiently, the same way he worked through everything. He had lost his wife 4 years ago, not to betrayal but to illness, and grief had either destroyed him or refined him. He still wasn't entirely sure which. What he knew was that he got up every morning because Lily needed him to, and somewhere along the way that had been enough reason to become someone worth being. It was the rain that connected them first, though neither of them knew it. When the sky opened up again, Alexa was driving home, or in the direction of home. her mind somewhere between a conference call and the quiet dread of another empty evening, when something on the sidewalk caught her attention. A man, a little girl. The man had taken off his jacket and draped it over the child like a tent, holding it above her head with both arms, completely soaked himself, shirt pressed flat against his skin by the rain. The girl was laughing, actually laughing, head thrown back, not caring about the rain that was splashing her shoes, because her father was there and that made everything an adventure instead of an inconvenience. Alexa slowed without meaning to. She sat there for a long moment, engine idling, watching them through the rain-streaked window. She couldn't explain why she couldn't look away. The scene was nothing remarkable, a father and daughter caught in bad weather. But there was something in it so unperformed, so completely without audience, that it hit her somewhere she hadn't felt anything in a very long time. When did I last see someone happy with absolutely nothing to gain from it? She drove home. But she kept thinking about the jacket. Fate, it turns out, has a sense of irony. 2 days later, Ethan Cole walked into the lobby of Morgan Enterprises for a job interview. He wore a navy blazer that was slightly outdated and shoes that were recently polished. He carried a folder with his resume and a quiet confidence that had nothing to do with arrogance and everything to do with a man who had already survived the worst thing that could happen to him. When he was shown into Alexa's office for the final round, she recognized him immediately. Or rather, she recognized something in him, that same unhurried steadiness she had seen through the rain. He didn't recognize her at all. "Tell me why I should hire you," she said, in the voice she used for people she expected to shrink. Ethan didn't shrink. "Because I don't quit," he said simply. "Not because of ambition, because I have a daughter who's counting on me to figure things out. I've managed complex projects on limited budgets for 6 years, and I've never missed a deadline. That's not something I'm proud of. It's just what I do." There was a pause. "You're not nervous," she observed. "I'm terrified," he said. "But I'm not going to let that help either of us." She hired him. She told herself it was because of his file. She was not entirely honest with herself. In the weeks that followed, Alexa noticed things she wasn't looking for. Ethan stayed late when a project needed it, and left exactly on time when it didn't. He never complained about the difficult accounts she assigned him. He didn't perform enthusiasm or campaign for visibility. During lunch breaks, she would sometimes see him sitting alone at a corner table watching something on his phone, a private smile crossing his face. Always the same expression, always the same quiet warmth. She asked his assistant once, casually, what he was always watching. "Videos his daughter sends him," the assistant said. "Apparently she narrates her whole school day into voice messages." Alexa said nothing, but she thought about it longer than she meant to. He was different from everyone else in that building, and not in any way she could point to in a performance review. He simply wasn't performing. In a world of people who curated their professional personas with the care of artists, Ethan Cole seemed to have forgotten to put a mask on, or perhaps had never needed one. That unsettled her more than she wanted to admit. The shift came on a Thursday morning when he walked in 40 minutes late. Alexa was already composing the reprimand when he appeared in her doorway, and she saw his face before he said a word. There was something wrecked in it, not careless or apologetic, wrecked. "Lily had a fever in the night," he said. "I'm sorry, it won't happen again." She opened her mouth, closed it, said nothing, because she knew that look. She had worn that look herself, once, briefly, before she had learned to keep her face still. It was the look of someone sitting with a fear too large for the chest to hold properly. She told him to take the afternoon if he needed it. He thanked her with genuine surprise, as though he hadn't expected basic kindness, and that surprised her in return. She found out that night, through a mutual contact who meant well, that Lily had been admitted to the hospital. High fever, possible infection, monitoring required. Ethan was there alone, the way he was apparently everywhere, alone and holding it together through sheer discipline. Alexa drove to the hospital without making a decision to do so. She simply found herself there. She saw him through the corridor window before he saw her. He was sitting in one of those plastic hospital chairs that are designed to be endured rather than occupied. His head was bowed. His hands were clasped between his knees. He was still the way a person is still when they have exhausted everything except the act of waiting. She heard him say something quietly to himself, or to no one, his voice low and cracked at the edges. "I can lose anything. I cannot lose her. Those words went somewhere deep. She spoke to the billing desk quietly, gave her card number, and walked out before anyone could tell him. She didn't want thanks. She couldn't have explained why she did it if she had tried. It made no strategic sense, served no professional purpose, produced nothing. She had simply done it because it was the only thing available to her in that moment that felt real. The next morning, Lily was better. Ethan found out somehow, perhaps the billing clerk mentioned it, and he appeared in Alexa's doorway with an expression she had never seen directed at her before. Not gratitude exactly, but something more complicated, a kind of recognition. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "I know," she said. He nodded slowly. "Thank you." She turned back to her computer, but after he left, she sat there for a long time doing absolutely nothing, which was not something Alexa Morgan did. 3 days later, a small drawing appeared on her desk, crayon on construction paper, a woman in a suit with yellow hair. She assumed that was meant to be her, standing next to a hospital with a star above it. In large, uneven letters, "Thank you from Lily." Alexa sat with that drawing for a very long time. She thought about walls, about how long she had spent building them, reinforcing them, living inside them, calling it strength. She thought about that rainy night and a jacket held over a laughing child. She thought about a man who had lost everything that mattered and still managed to find a reason to smile at a burnt piece of toast. She thought, maybe the problem was never love. Maybe the problem was one man who didn't deserve it. And for the first time in 3 years, that thought didn't feel like weakness. It felt like the beginning of something accurate. When she left the office that evening, she sat in her car again, same seat, same city lights, same rain beginning to fall outside. But she was not the same woman. She didn't have answers. She wasn't certain of anything. She wasn't ready to call it hope, because hope felt like a word that required more courage than she currently had in stock. But she noticed, for the first time, that her phone felt different in her hand. Less like a reminder of everyone she had stopped calling, and more like a question she hadn't answered yet. Through the windshield, the city lights blurred and softened in the rain, and Alexa Morgan, who had spent 3 years being absolutely certain about everything, sat quietly with a feeling she couldn't categorize. Something had come loose inside the ice. Something was beginning to move, and this time, she didn't try to stop it.